morning. Can all of you hear me? Yes. Good. Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually alive, justice-centered, and radically inclusive community. We are so glad that you are here with us, both in the sanctuary and online. My name is Lori Cross, and I am your Sunday associate this morning. We do 14 and August 28th. So enthusiastic religious professional, yay, informed by a lifelong commitment to Unitarian Universalism. Alia graduated, get ready, of course, Harvard Divinity School in 2020 as part of their ministerial preparation, and then served as student minister for the well-known UU congregation at Shelter Rock through June of 2021. What a challenging time. Alia is passionate about the potential for religious life to help us all get a little more free through storytelling, deep connections, and space to grow, experiment, and imagine our ways into embodying spectacular futures filled with justice and generosity. To that end, today's service is titled Seeding Survival, and asks us to bridge both deep hurt and great hope for this earth and each other as we face the crises of our present and future. How great does that sound? Okay. I'd like to ask Laurent to come up. He has an announcement to make.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. All right. Are you aware we have a roof over the mansion? Yes? So it needs repair. We have a budget. Therefore, we need a vote. You should all have received an email on Friday. There's a vote scheduled for July 31st, which is in 2 weeks. So it's coming fast. Why so fast? Because we have a small window to get it done before the winter, when it's not really a good idea to be up there. This time, because we have such a short window and it's the summer, we have updated our proxy system, so you can use it the same way and just designate somebody to vote for you, or you can vote directly in the proxy and just send the proxy to the secretary or admin@muf.org, and then that will be your vote. More info will be shared with additional emails, but also on Zoom. Gateways has set up 3 Zoom sessions, and always 7:30 p.m. I guess we like evening Zoom. It will be Tuesday, July 19, Thursday.
One more announcement before Alia comes up to light the chalice, to lead us, excuse me. Our offering today will be split 50-50 between the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship and Nourish, New Jersey. You can donate at the text-to-give number 73256 with the keyword MUF, followed by the dollar amount. You can also give by visiting our website, www.muf.org. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's great to be here with you. Will you join me in saying the words in unison for our chalice lighting? Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you.
And I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in our opening song, number 1051, We Are. And because we like to keep you well-rounded here at the Fellowship, we're going to use hymnals today rather than the screen. So it's number 1051 in your teal hymnal. Sons of great visions, we're seekers of mercy and thrillers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are our grandlove, our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For a time for all ages today, I would invite the young or the young at heart to come towards the front if you feel moved. If not, stay where you are. Today I want to talk to you about the life cycles of seeds. If we had a projector, I would show you a picture of an acorn right now, but technical difficulties are holding us back a little bit. But still in all, acorns are some of my favorite seeds. Seeds are special because while they are the beginning of something, like an acorn, which will become a tall oak tree, they also signal the end of something, the growing season for whichever plant grew them. We might say that they're symbols of potential, of the possibility to grow and transform and become something new. Seeds are nature's mechanism for survival through the generations, and they enable the survival of other species. You have to remember that not every acorn becomes a tall tree. Some become food for birds and squirrels. Others don't find good soil or enough water or sunlight or space to grow into their full potential. And so they break down to nourish the soil for future growth. And seeds come in all kinds of varieties, big, small, and in between. Even sometimes from the same tree or plant, seeds can look really, really different from one branch to the next. Have you ever wished on a dandelion? Their seeds are small enough to blow away on the wind and find new homes in far-off places. There are so many seeds in this bountiful world we inhabit, and they come in all forms. They grow into all different kinds of plants, from fruit trees to vegetables to grasses to flowers. Seeds are a necessary part of the cycle of life, both for the plants that grow them, the plants they may grow to become, and for all the human and animal life that lives off the nourishment they provide. You remember how I talked about the dandelion, how small they are, how they can just go off on the wind? Acorns are some of my favorite seeds because they're actually too big for the wind to carry them. So they depend on animals and birds and even humans picking them up and putting them in our pockets to spread around and find new homes to grow into tall oaks. This is part of why acorns are some of my favorites. They remind me that in order to become new trees, they need to be connected to other forms of life. They count on those connections, the beings they live in relationship to find new ground and to take root. And they remind me that sometimes you have to experiment and try a lot of different options before finding the best ones that work to support the community. After all, oak trees can't count on just one acorn to find a new home to grow, which is why they grow lots and lots of them every year. I think there's some serious plant wisdom in that, something we can draw on when we think about starting a new cycle in our own lives. It takes care and patience, time and generosity, and no small amount of luck for a single acorn to grow and change and transform into a proud oak tree. And it takes a lot more than one acorn to make that one's survival possible. And so much of that is true for many other kinds of life, your lives and my life included. So next time you find a seed, I hope you will remember how connected we all are, how that seed might need you to survive or how you might need it. Maybe you'll also remember how some endings can be beginnings too, and how we need each other to spread the seeds of goodness around the world so we can better grow into our full potential. This is now the time in our service where we set aside to honor those milestones and passages that shape the lives of this community as they are held and honored by individual congregants. I haven't received any milestones today, so I just want to speak for myself. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I am so looking forward to the summer and to the ways we will learn about each other in community here. I'd like to invite you to take a deep breath with me. Where there is grief, may there also be space for gratitude. Where there is suffering, may there also be compassion. Where there is joy, may there be celebration. May all that is shared here strengthen the commitments and connections of this community.
Now will you rise as you are able, and we'll do our next song, hymn 1053.
In your teal hymnal. How deep soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Now we'll continue with the offertory. We welcome your generosity as you listen to today's offertory music. Thank you.
Our reading today comes from the Gray Hymnal, number 465, It's called The Wisdom to Survive by Wendell Berry.
If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place,
Renewing, enriching it.
if we will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven,
Then a long time after we are dead, the lives our lives prepare will live here.
their houses strongly placed upon the valley sides,
Fields and gardens rich in the windows, the river will run clear as we will never know it.
and over it, birdsong like a canopy.
On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, stock bells and noon shade.
On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down an old forest,
An old forest will stand, its rich leaf fall drifting on its roots.
the veins of forgotten springs will have opened. Families will be singing in the fields.
Voices they will hear a music risen out of the ground.
They will take nothing from the ground, they will not return, whatever the grief at parting.
Memory, native to this valley, will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, legend into song, song into sacrament.
The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light.
This is no paradisal dream, its hardship is its possibility. Thank you for joining in that unison reading. To start off today, I'm afraid I have to make a confession. I am a big nerd. I love, and I mean love, science fiction. For all of my life, science fiction has helped me to imagine how much more is possible than what I see in the everyday. How many more stories there are to tell about this world and beyond it. How many ways there are to live our lives and grow and transform and be conscientious moral beings in this infinite universe. And admittedly, the idea of space travel just seems cool. Did any of you catch the picture NASA released this week, the first images returned by the James Webb Space Telescope? Yeah, I knew this was my audience. The infrared image, the first one that is known as Webb's first deep field, depicts thousands upon thousands of galaxies, each which contain thousands upon thousands of potential stars and uncountable numbers of planets. The caption that accompanies that image claims that this slice of the vast universe covers a patch of sky approximately the size of a grain of sand held at arm's length by someone on the ground here on Earth. I looked at this image and my brain simply could not comprehend how vast the area was, let alone the rest of the universe not yet pictured. But even though I struggled to comprehend the scale, looking at that image, the thousands of galaxies, billions of light years away, gave me insight into how many ways of being human, of just being alive, are possible in this infinite universe. Thinking this way challenges me to consider how many ways of relating there must be. How many fall far, far outside of the violent and extractive frameworks that characterize too many of our lives. Just glimpses of space like this, no bigger than the width of a grain of sand to our eyes peering at the night sky, filled to the brim with stars, reminds me of how many stories there may be to tell, how many angles and perspectives can shape a single view, especially when I'm feeling stuck inside a single narrative of the way life is. I love the way considering the depth and breadth of space beyond our planet, beyond our Milky Way galaxy even, offers me some much-needed perspective on just how small my life is. All our lives and struggles and problems and triumphs are, and reminds me of what still matters, what's still significant even at the scale of one life, or one planet's life, within the entirety of the cosmos. When this photo was released, Lutheran pastor Nadia Boltz-Weber wrote online, "I thought we could start a list of things that make no sense whatsoever in light of these images of our universe from 13 billion light years away. I'll start. Nationalism." Other answers, which she shared in her newsletter this week, included self-aggrandizement, racism, having a nice lawn, superiority, obsession with whatever bathroom everyone is using, and getting angry in traffic, which then led her to affirm at least 3 things that still matter deeply in light of these images. First, human dignity. Second, human flourishing. And third, the well-being of this planet all Earthlings share. Put another way, in light of these images, what still matters is how we treat each other, our relationship with this planet we share, and with the many beings we share it with. We, Unitarian Universalists, may point to these truths in our commitment to respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So when I look at images like the ones released, and if you haven't seen them, please look them up. I will show you after the service. They are mind-blowing. I find myself challenged to consider how much more is possible than the stories we tell about what this world is and has been, who we as individuals are, and what we as communities are capable of, where our power to shape our lives comes from. I wonder how we might expand the stories of who we were, who we are, and who we might become. We as individuals, worlds among ourselves, we collectively as Unitarian Universalists, or even we as members of the human species for all our gifts and all our flaws. In 1986, Ursula Le Guin, the multiple award-winning speculative fiction author, wrote of being an adherent of what is called the carrier bag theory of human evolution. To quote, "So long as human culture was explained as originating from and elaborating upon the use of long, hard objects for sticking, bashing, and killing, I never thought that I had or wanted any particular share in it." However, she noted, if it is a human thing to do, to put something you want because it is useful, edible, or beautiful into a bag or a basket or a bit of rolled bark or leaf or a net woven of your own hair, or what have you, and then take it home with you, home being another larger kind of pouch or bag, a container for people. And then later on, you take it out and you eat it, or you share it, or you store it up for winter in a solider container, or you put it in the medicine bundle, or the shrine, or the museum, or the holy place, the area that contains what is sacred. If to do that is human, if that's what it takes, then I am a human being after all. These last 9 months or so, I've had plenty of opportunities to consider what it is to be human and to contemplate a wide variety of human responses to crises in our American consumer society. I've been working at a grocery store, and I've seen over and over how people write their stories of precarity in the language of scarcity. There has been plenty for any of us to feel precarious about in these last months and years. Precarious around the pandemic, the supply chain, wars and politics, inflation, labor, a lack of meaningful compensation for meaningful work, questions around what information is true and what decisions are wise, and of course, who can be trusted, who or what to look towards when all of seemingly everything is going awry. But at work, again and again, I've heard from customers the fearful fable that there's nothing here, or you're out of everything, when the shelves do have gaps without visible product, or maybe look lightly stocked to my eyes, but are clearly not bare and empty. Instead of arriving with curiosity and creativity, noticing the abundance of what might otherwise be overlooked, again and again I've seen people fall into a trap of coming into the store with preformed notions of what they expect to find, what they've determined they must have, and list in hand, taking note of what is absent, rather than taking the time to notice all that is still present and abundant, or might be creatively repurposed to serve their evolving needs. It's made me wonder, in how many other areas of our lives do we write our lists of the way things are and what we expect they should be, and of course, what we feel we must have to use, abuse, and consume, without taking a moment to really discern what it is we need. What possibilities may already be seated in our midst, just awaiting a little care and attention to grow into their potential? Today, I want to invite you to consider with me the ways that we as human beings, but especially we as Unitarian Universalists, encounter and evolve around these crises and transitions. From the pandemic to the myriad climate breakdowns presently happening and predicted, to the transitions and milestones in our individual lives, which shape and challenge us to grow and transform into a great evolving unknown. I believe it is by now clear that we cannot continue to wait upon the story of the individual superhero or somehow superior community slaying the dragon of our uncertainty with their sharp sticks. For starters, we Unitarian Universalists were not the sharp sticks people. Instead, I believe our paths forward require us to invest in those stories of what we must carry, store up, and share to see ourselves and each other in dignity and in care through these rising tides. 2 years into this pandemic, and we who are still here have survived. We have been changed through this time, as has our planet Earth, and still, despite the fear and the unmeasurable losses of life, loved ones, and ways of life, we've survived, at times haltingly, painfully, while staggeringly overwhelmed and utterly over it. In the poem Dead Stars, Ada Limon writes, "Look, we are not unspectacular things. We've come this far, survived this much. What would happen if we decided to survive more, to love harder? What if we stood up with our synapses and flesh and said no, no to the rising tides, stood for the many mute mouths of the sea, of the land? What would happen if we used our bodies to bargain for the safety of others, for Earth?" Our survival is not guaranteed, not as individuals, not as communities, not as nations, not as a species, not even as a planet. This is a lesson we have learned through the pain of loss and are learning anew each day of our brief and precious lives. But in the face of that loss, I think of all we have gathered and continue to carry forward over the last years of crises far outside our control. I think of the ways that we have learned to adapt, to integrate new technology into our lives, to reach out for support and to offer mutual aid. I think of the communities harvesting their own food for the very first time this season, and the generosity of those who will share the literal fruits of their labor with those who hunger in their local communities. I think of the boundless creativity, the sheer grit it has taken for us to get to this point here worshiping together in this sanctuary and online, and here, each of us staying alive one day at a time. And I know how terrifying and exhausting it has all been. But that's why sacred containers like that of this service are so important. why congregations are more than four walls and some video cameras, why we gather in body as well as in spirit, because this container takes on its character through the connections we form here, the spaces we make between us, the ways we are stretched to further extend our love, our compassion, and our care. This is a place to bring all we are carrying and all that is too heavy to bear alone, our grief, our gratitude, our terror, and our tenderness, and to put it down for a little while. Congregational life can be a container for our humanity if we let it serve as one. Our connections with each other and with the earth here can be a rejuvenating oasis in a desert of troubles, a shelter in a time of storms. This can be a place where we try on something new, put down an old hurt, and pick up a new passion. Share a skill or a story, laugh, sing, dance, cry. This can be a place where we recognize the abundance in our midst, where we decide that not all is lost so long as we might find and feed each other right here. Together, our communities are large enough to hold what you bring, and they are strong enough to carry you when you are unsure of the way ahead. And communities of faith like these can be places to experiment with who we might be or who we might wish to become, to try on new skills and encounter unexpected joys, to take those risks worth taking, and to answer the call to repair what is in our power and seed new life and tend that growth for the generations and communities who come after this. I've seen hints of these possibilities already in our midst. In the absence of common sense guidance in public policy, just as many of us have begun to take our cues for what precautions we take around COVID and what we're willing to risk from those who are immunocompromised and from those who risk exposure on the front lines, so too must we commit to acting in solidarity with those individuals and communities and sacred places on holding and resisting the front lines of the climate crises. And though at times this means we must be flexible and grow and explore what is still possible at a healthy distance, we are in this together. When politicians can't seem to agree that mitigating further harm to the interconnected ecosystems of this planet we all depend upon for survival is in our mutual interests, I look towards the people in this room and the container that we create together to remember the images of these galaxies, these countless stars in the skies we share, and remember how much more is possible, how much more possibility we can create between us than the stories we are being sold about how we can't change and how they won't act and how the cost is too high and the time is too late. I have to admit, I do not believe some external salvation is coming. I've lost faith in the story of the hero or heroes who collectively pull us, humanity as a species, extractive and exploitative late capitalism, or even our miraculous planet Earth back from the brink. I don't believe in the technology that arrives in the nick of time, or the 11th hour Hail Mary harebrained scheme which suddenly makes the impossible possible. I, like Ursula Le Guin, believe in the evolution of what we carry, and how we carry on together is more apt to describe our humanity. And to do so, I believe we need to turn toward the suffering that is happening now, as well as that which is likely to come. I know we're all overwhelmed, and it can feel so necessary to tune out, to escape, and to turn away and look towards a place of optimism and hope, or to seek quiet and numbness, whatever the cost. And I want to say clearly, escape has its place in our lives. It's a healthy outlet and a space for creativity and imagination, but it simply cannot be the place we choose to live as we hide from all the realities of life in our time. Because while we might shut out those that are terrifying, we will also miss those realities that are miraculous and the many, many spaces in between. We need joy and beauty and story and song and each other as part of the fullness and richness of emotional experiences of connection and compassion. just as surely as we need water and air. So tune in to the love that already lives here, and tend to the love you can grow elsewhere, but not at the exclusion of the reality of the pain that the world carries. Remember, in the hardest moments when the urge to shift attention elsewhere is strongest, that suffering that cannot be seen is suffering that cannot be eased. The good news is that sometimes, if we can slow down and notice this instinct to ignore and escape the reality of our circumstances, of Earth's circumstances, we can instead choose to reconnect with our bodies and this land we find ourselves on, and recommit to reducing harm and seeking justice in its place. We can choose to reach for this still living, miraculous Earth, and for each other as living parts of this planet, even as we move through these crises over the course of our lives together. It will never be as it was. So maybe it's time to let go of that story, that fantasy really of a pristine planet, untouched and unchanged by the life that inhabits it. But just because it will not be as it was does not mean it cannot be good again, or that we're released from our responsibilities to seed pockets of goodness wherever we can. We may not save ourselves or each other, but it matters how we journey together. The legacies we leave for our children, all children of this miraculous multi-species living planet. As people and as communities, it matters what we plant and it matters how we die, because it matters what we leave behind. Will we choose to seed survival for future generations, or simply selfishly cling to systems and institutions that promise safety, comfort, security, or wealth only at the low, low cost of dignity, connection, and sustainability? As a skeptic, I have already noted that we may not win, but if we do not struggle to right what is so clearly and persistently wrong in this world, greed, ignorance, exploitation, persecution, if we do not try to shift our collective course towards a more sustainable future, I am certain that in time we will all lose. I want to leave you today with these words from Ursula Le Guin, whose imagination and creativity has helped countless people looking towards the reality of the present as well as our hopes for the future. She writes, "Science fiction, properly conceived, like all serious fiction, however funny, is a way of trying to describe what is in fact going on, what people actually do and feel, how people relate to everything else in this vast stack, this belly of the universe, this womb of things to be and tomb of things that were, this unending story. And still the story isn't over. Still there are seeds to be gathered and room in the bag of stars." May we write the stories that seed our survival and restore the abundance of our living planet. May we love harder, live bolder, sing louder, and heal farther than any of us could imagine alone. May we never disconnect our fragile and fertile place within this infinite universe of fabulous galaxies and countless stars. Together, may we make it so. Amen.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing song, number 1064 in your teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. my sail, and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Announcement I wanted to jump in here real quick with. Candace Donaldson is speaking with our children and her wife Brooke about what it means to be visually impaired and the ways in which she goes about the world with her seeing eye dog and the way she communicates electronically and stuff. And she wants to invite you all, if you have any questions about that stuff or would like to learn more about it, to join her in the terrace room after the service as well. That's where the kids are. So.
Extinguish the chalice. Do you want to extinguish the chalice? Yes, yes. All right. Our closing words today come to us from Jess Reynolds, from their book of meditations, Love Like Thunder. On my worst days, it is gravity I am most grateful for. The way the earth pulls at me from her core, yearns for me, keeps me pressed tightly against her surface. When my own core is hollowed out, when I have no more mass than a leaf dead on the branch, still this is enough for the earth to find me. She reaches for what little I have and says, "Stay." Every meditation I have ever done begins by asking me to ground myself. This is not so much an action as it is inaction, surrender, a voluntary abandonment of my own edges and tidy packaging. Sit with me now. Press the soles of your feet back into the ground you sprang from. Feel the weight of your body and know that it is glorious. You are born of soil and sun, and all the heaviness of the earth is a call to you. The earth is reaching for you. Reach back. Reach back.
Thank you.